I told you there'd be at Builders' Arms. The Seven should have gone there first. We should put that in police manual. When desires of apprehending shepherd Bob, head for nearest coat.
All right, you can come out. They've gone.
Oh, God, it's like Black Ball and Calcutta in here.
I'd rather be in the nick. At least they wouldn't stink of pickled onions. Hey, this is a very insanitary food cupboard, Queenie. If the health inspector was to look in there, you get 6 months.
Yes, and if the police had been and looked in there, you'd have got 6 years. Well, what do they want you for this time? Is it the cider bacon hanging up in the scullery, the Irish whiskey in the sideboard, or could it be that roll of Harris tweed under my bed?
That Alice tweed was honestly come by. I told you I won it in a raffle.
Oh, I don't doubt it, love. You were always lucky, you were. Same as that electric typewriter you won last August Bank Holiday Monday.
I did win it.
What, on a hoopla stall? Well, which one of you are they after this time? Or do they just want to book you as a group?
Well, don't look at me. I've done nothing.
Well, that goes without saying, our Raymond. But perhaps there's been some confusion of identity. Maybe a man answering your description was seen staggering up the steps with an half-side of bacon under his arm.
I've told you it's not me they want.
Oh, maybe it's our Douglas then. Are the police anxious to interview you in connection with their inquiries? Hey, our dumb chum, are you wanted by the police?
No.
Thank you. And remember that anything you say will be taken down and used in evidence. Well, they're not after our Douglas, and they're not after our Jack. Who are they after?
I think it's me.
Never. What, my little bunny? What's never touched anything that wasn't his since last Tuesday? I don't believe it.
Well, it's not about nicking anything. I think it's about the van.
Oh, well, that's all right then. It'll be just the usual routine inquiries about driving without a licence or failing to stop whilst you take a shortcut across the bowling green. You'll get fined £200 this time, and don't come running to your mother to pay it, because I don't care if they put you in flaming Borstal.
Yes, well, I'm glad you mentioned Borstal, Queenie, because you see, I'm afraid that's what our bunny's a bit worried about.
Oh, for God's sake, I was only joking. Oh, don't worry, our bunny. You write and ask your father. He's been all through it. Court number 1, it'll be Major Yeomans. They'll call out your name, and then you have to stand up, and then Major Yeomans will look at you as though you're made out of muck. And he'll say, if it was in his power, he'd give you life imprisonment, and then he'll fine you £5. And don't forget to ask for time to pay, because you're supporting your mother.
What will he say about the van, though?
Oh, well, I know he collects vintage cars. Perhaps he'll make you an offer for it. I mean, the worst he can say is that it's unfit to be on the road.
He'll have more than that to say about it when he finds out whose van it is.
What are you talking about? It's our van, bought and paid for.
Ah, that's it, Queenie. You see, technically, it isn't.
What do you mean, technically? Either it is our rotten van or it isn't our rotten van. I gave you £25 to pay for that. What did you do with the money?
I lost it. I had a hole in my pocket.
You had a hole in your head, more like, where your brain should have been. Here, you've been gambling again, haven't you? Our Douglas, I blame you for this. You've been leading your little brother into evil ways.
Shut up!
Don't you tell me to shut up, you daft idle git. If you must teach him to play the horses, teach him a proper flaming system. Right. Well, if you didn't buy the van, how, may I ask, did it come to be in your possession?
We borrowed it.
Oh, come on, love. You can do much better than that. Are you sure you didn't win it as first prize in a darts match?
Honest, man, we borrowed it. Straight up. Well, we couldn't come home without the van after you'd forked out all the money to pay for it, could we?
No, I don't think you could.
So we borrowed one.
It's the truth. I mean, we didn't even have to ask for it, did we, lads? I mean, we're just sitting in Builders, wondering what to do.
Frightened to come home, you mean?
Wondering what to do. And then this chap says right out of the blue, you can borrow my van if you like.
I see. And may I beg to inquire the name of this generous benefactor?
Bobby Heppenstall.
Oh, God. You do know, of course, that Bobby Eppenstall is doing 2 years for thieving lead off the parish church roof.
Well, that's why he hasn't come back for his van.
And I'll tell you something else. That van that they used on them lead thieving expeditions was never traced.
I know. That's what I'm worried about.
What's that?
Well, it's not the bloody Death Watch Beetle, I can tell you that.
Well, they must know it, and they can hear your voice down at police headquarters.
They'll probably think I was singing to myself. Get back in that cupboard, the lot of you. I'll deal with this.
Come on, Ray. Oh, come on, Daddy. Squeeze in, pull ya. Oh, whoa. Yo, bloody hell!
Bloody hellfire, it's the Three Stooges. Come in. It's all right, lads. You can come out. They've been doing a bit of spring cleaning, you see. My lads are very helpful to me around the house. Well, you lot look as though you're going to break into song. What have you come for, an audition?
I'm rather surprised to find you at home, Mrs. Shepherd. The police seem to have gained a distinct impression that you were all out. Or should I say, on the run.
No doubt you told them otherwise, though, didn't you, love? Tell me, do you get paid for information received, or do you just get police protection?
I'm very sorry, Mrs. Shepherd, but when the even keel of life in Buckingham Flats is upset, it is my duty to inform the appropriate authorities. In the present instance, Police Constable Thornton.
She's right, Mrs. Shepherd, isn't she, Edgar?
She is right. It's not on, is it, Albert?
No, it's not on. It's not fair, is it, Edgar?
It is not on. That's what Mrs. Petty said. Didn't you, Mrs. Petty?
All right, Wilson, Keppel and Betty, you can cut that grass talk. Tell me, how do you finish the act, then? Do you play those things or just juggle with them?
Hey, we ride it, don't we, Edgar?
Oh, we did, but we can't now, can we, Albert?
What you see before you, Mrs. Shepherd, are the unhappy remains of a bicycle.
Oh, I'm with you. Oh, I'm sorry, Edgar and Albert, but we don't deal in scrap metal no more. Ever since we had all that bother with Mrs. Westoncott's pram. Do you remember that, Jack? I didn't know her little Boris was still in it. Did you know her Boris was still in it?
I don't think it's a question of scrap metal, Queenie. I think it's more a question of compensation.
Compensation and satisfaction within the law. Your son, Mrs. Shepherd, is a menace to the community.
I know, love. They all are in their own individual ways. Which one particularly did you want to single out?
That one. I saw him with my own eyes. He drove his van recklessly and at speed over that bicycle.
Ah, didn't you know?
No, did you know?
Ah, didn't you know?
You bloody did, you know, didn't you, Mrs. Petty?
Ah, didn't you know?
He most certainly did. That bicycle was parked on the concrete area outside Margaret Rowe's house, and that unspeakable person in that unspeakable van drove over it.
Oh, so you went minnying round to the police?
I felt it my duty.
Lord Nelson felt very much the same way, and he lost one eye, so watch it! Now then, which one of you two does this bike belong to?
It belongs to both of us, doesn't it, Albert?
It does that. I ride it on day shift, he rides it on night shift.
Well, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you £5 to buy yourselves a brand new second-hand bike.
They found that old grid on the coal tip.
Shut up, Peter. Now, all you have to do in return is to go down to the police station and say you're very sorry, but there's been a mistake and you wish to withdraw the prosecution. Now, what do you say?
Thank you very much.
Not to me, you gormless old twit, to the police. You say you're very sorry to have trouble with him, but it wasn't our Bunny's van that run over your bike after all.
Ah, but it was though, wasn't it, Edgar?
It was that, wasn't it, Mrs. Petty?
We wish to see justice done.
Edgar and Albert, how long have I known you?
Oh, that's going back a bit. I can remember you when you were a little lass.
Ah, running around with no bloomers on.
This is hardly the point, Mrs. Shepherd. There's a principle here. Besides, that van is not fit to be on the road.
That van, Mrs. Petty, happens to be worth its weight in gold to these flats. Who do you think does all the fetching and carrying around here? We've been like flaming Pickfords to you lot. Well, I'll tell you one thing. If this case does go to court, that van will be seen no more.
Neither will we.
So are you going down to the police station?
I think we'd better do, don't you, Albert?
Well, weighing one thing up with another. What say you, Mrs. Petty?
I'm sorry, but I stand firm. Your son was driving recklessly without due care.
I keep telling you, I wasn't even driving the rotten van.
That is for the court to decide.
Oh, you must have your court case, mustn't you? You're a proper little Edgar Lusgarten, you are. Very well, Mrs. Petty, you shall have it. Can you all be down at Builder's Arms by 5:30 tonight?
Well, I can make it. Can you, Albert?
I can that.
I'm afraid I don't drink.
Oh, you're not going there to drink, love. You're all going to see justice done. Anything to do with me liege, the Queen's justices, sup up and draw near. Mrs. Petty, well, we don't often have the pleasure of your company down here.
I'm not here for pleasure, Mrs. Shepherd.
Oh.
Mr. Snellgrove, sugar-free tonic water, please.
Mr. Clerk of the Court, will you please read out the charge? Mr. Clerk of the Court, I'm talking to you. Read out the charge.
Bernard Anthony Shepherd, you are charged with driving a vehicle to wit an old van in such a way as to run over and cause damage to another vehicle, to wit an old bicycle.
Come on, Douglas, get on with it.
Shut up! How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Thank you.
Mrs. Shepherd, I have come here to protest. These proceedings are an absolute shambles.
Mrs. Petty, I've been in more magistrates' courts than you've had facelifts, and that's saying something. Now, you wanted a trial, and a trial you are going to have, so sit down and shut up or I'll have you for contempt. Hey, prisoner at the bar, get back in the box. Now, then who's appearing for the prosecution?
Milord, I am appealing for the prosecution.
All right, we can do without your imitations of Charles Lawton for a start. Call your first witness.
Call Albert Duxbury and Edgar Butterfield.
Called Edgar Duxbury and Albert Butterfield.
Call Albert Butterfield and Edgar Duxbury.
For crying out loud, call Albert Duxbury and Edgar Butterfield.
Mr. Clerk of the Court.
Call Albert Edgar and Duxbury... No. Them two.
Gentlemen.
Yeah, just a minute. You can't have two witnesses in the box at the same time.
With respect, my lord, there is a precedent, the case of Regina versus the Siamese twins.
I'll fetch you such a clout in a minute, Jack Shepherd. Get one of them witnesses out the box.
With the court's indulgence, Edgar wouldn't come without Albert, and Albert wouldn't come without Edgar.
That's right, with us being big mates, you see. Because we've always been big mates, haven't we, Albert?
Aye, always gone everywhere together. Whether it was a school outing or the boys' brigade or on our honeymoon. We enjoyed that honeymoon, didn't we, Edgar?
All right, get on with it.
I saw your lips move.
I've got a Yorkshire pudding in the oven, so I don't want to be sitting here all night, do I?
Mr. Duxbury, Mr. Butterfield, I see that you're both wearing medal ribbons.
Aye, one star. We've got one apiece, haven't we, Albert?
Would I be right in saying that you both saw honourable service in the First World War?
Aye, went all through it, didn't we, Edgar?
We did that.
Ah, we both joined the King's Own Yorkshire Light Infantry, August the 3rd, 1914. And in them days, they gave us a shilling a day. That's what they call the King's Shilling.
Thank you. The page of scrapbook turns. Jack Shepherd, are you going to let them go on like this, or we're going to be here all flaming night?
My lord, I was merely trying to establish that they were both honourable and reliable witnesses.
Yes, well, I think we'll take that as read.
Objection. I appear for the defence, my lord. I would like to ask the witnesses a question.
Go on.
I would like to ask the witnesses, who gave you that full packet of 20 cigarettes?
Your Jack did. He said you play fair by me and I'll play fair by you. Didn't he, Albert?
There you are, the witnesses have been corrupted.
What do you mean, corrupted? Hey, who gave you a double whiskey apiece before these proceedings commence?
You Raymond did. He says, you do as I tell you and I'll see it all right.
There you are, you conniving git, you ought to be struck off. Don't talk to me like that, I'll
This is
strike you off.
intolerable. Those two are out of order.
Talking of orders, it's our Douglas's round.
It's in, you know.
It is, you know, you haven't dipped your hand in your pocket since we came in here.
And what about...
Get no
Quiet! Now, if I have any more of these interruptions, I shall clear the old court for contempt and bubbles to the lot of you. It's about time we had a little bit of decorum here. Our Jack, get on with the case.
Me lord.
And our Douglas, the court rules that it is your round, so get 'em in.
Hey. Now then, you two are the owners of a bicycle, right?
That's right.
That's right.
Will you tell the court where this bicycle was on the morning of the 14th?
It was leaning up against a coal shed.
I lean up against coal shed.
Leaning up against a coal shed.
Lean up against it.
Will you please tell the court what happened on that particular day?
Oh, there was a big noise. Broom, broom, broom.
Aye, broom, 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 a big noise.
And I saw your bunny's van doing 60 mile an hour.
Aye, 60 mile an hour doing your bunny's van.
And he comes round that corner.
He comes round that corner.
And he tries to pull
He
up.
tries to pull up.
All right, little Sir Echo, we can do without everything in duplicate. I mean, you're going to keep answering like this. It's going to take twice as fast. Go on, go on.
Well, he tries to pull up. He was going too fast and he went clean over our bike.
Clean over our bike, he went because it was going too fast to pull up.
Exactly. In my submission, Mrs. Shepherd, my case is proved to the hilt.
You keep out of it. You can have your 2 penneth in a minute. Our Douglas, behave yourself. Carry on, Jack.
Millard, do you think we might have a short conference on a point of law?
Approach the bench. Well, couldn't you have gone before the case started? All right, go on, and don't sit in there all night reading. Our Raymond, you can be cross-examining the witnesses.
Mr. Duxbury and Mr. Butterfield, where exactly were you when you heard this from?
Oh, it wasn't from. It was a broom, broom, broom. Wasn't it, Albert?
Ah, that's right. Broom, broom, broom it were. We were sitting in here supping half a mile.
So you didn't actually see our bunny drive over your bike?
Well, we didn't see him, no.
Ah!
Ah, but we heard him. Broom, broom, broom.
Broom, broom, broom it wasn't. It must have been doing our 60 mile an hour, but we didn't see him, I'll admit that.
Thank you. Now I want to ask you a very important question, and I want you to think very carefully before answering. What are you drinking?
I'll have a double whiskey.
Objection!
You keep out of it and get on with what you're doing. Objection sustained. But if you are getting them in our Raymond, I'll have a rum and pep. The court is adjourned for 5 minutes. Here he comes.
Clerk of the court, call Mrs. Petty.
What would you like him to call her? Mrs. Petty.
Mrs. Petty.
Mrs. Petty. On the morning in question, you were leaning over the balcony of your flat, right?
I was.
Yes, we know, spying.
I was not spying, Mr. Shepherd. I was watering my azalea.
That would be approximately from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m.
That is correct.
Well, you could have grown a flaming azalea in that time, never mind water one. Pray continue.
Mrs. Petty, did you see a van coming round that corner?
I did.
Was it travelling at speed?
It was.
Did you see it pull up outside Margaret Rowe's house?
I did.
And was the van travelling so fast that before stopping, it passed over a bicycle?
It was.
Is this the bicycle?
It is.
You saw this happen with your own eyes?
Yes.
Bingo!
Thank you. Call the next witness.
You have told the court, Mr. Shepherd, that you weren't even driving that van on that fatal morning. Would you care to
Reiterate.
Thank you.
A pleasure, my learned colleague.
To reiterate that statement.
No, why should I? It's true.
I know it's true, you stupid Burke. I'm asking you to repeat it.
I already have done once.
I will now ask the clerk of the court to read out what that stupid prisoner has said. Come on, Howard Douglas. I was not in the something van. And if Mrs. Something Petty says I was, she is a something liar. I was nowhere near the something van. I was in the chuffing betting shop. Thank you.
Learned Anthony Shepherd, do you deny that it was your van that ran over that bicycle?
I don't know whether it did or not. I wasn't there.
Don't you quibble with me, laddie. I'll have your guts for garters. Do you deny that it was your van?
How can I deny it? I wasn't there.
So you admit that it was your van that ran over this bicycle, this ancient, venerable machine? The sole means of transport of these two gallant old gentlemen who fought and died for their country in 2 world wars.
All right, put a sock in it. Raymond, have you got anything else to say?
Can I plead insanity?
No, you flaming can't. Bunny, have you got anything to say?
Yes, I didn't do it.
Well, somebody did it, love, and it wasn't the fairies at the bottom of our garden, was it? Now then, I have listened very carefully to all this evidence, and I'm sorry to have to say it, but I find you very, very guilty.
Quite right.
You can't do that, you know, some man.
And the sentence of this court is that you should buy Edgar and Albert a brand new bike, and that you should stand drinks all round for the rest of the evening. Now, is there anybody here, mentioning no names, who has not seen justice to be done?
Yes, Queenie. Me.
How do you mean, Howard Jack?
I didn't think you'd find him guilty.
Well, what do you mean? Of course he's guilty. Stands out a mile he's guilty. You've been standing up there for the last hour and a half shouting and raving that he's guilty.
Yes, yeah, I know, but, well, that was just for effect, you see. I'm very sorry there's been a miscarriage of justice.
What are you talking about, a miscarriage of justice?
Well, I couldn't say so before, being as how I was prosecuting in that. But I do happen to know for a fact that our Bunny wasn't driving the van that morning.
And how do you know that? May I be so bold as to ask?
I was driving it. That bicycle.
Well, you bloody If I don't knock your head right off your shoulders. Come here, Perry Mason. I got an unfinished case I want to talk about with you. And I'm
That's better. Now then, I have a serious matter to discuss with you lot. It concerns your van.
Ah, well, I'm glad you mentioned
I
that,
think
Mr.
you'll
Thornton.
find there's a very simple explanation.
There stands need to be. Right then, first things first, I shall want to know who is the official owner of that van.
It's my van. I take full responsibility for it.
Mrs. Queenie Shepherd. Address as usual. Now, Mrs. Shepherd, can you explain to me what that van is doing, parked on a double yellow line?
Blame our Bunny and our Jack. They're in this thing together.